Cheating. The pinnacle of evil. There is no more heinous crime than fudging a die roll. Maybe some of you have or have had friends that cheat when you're playing a game with them, or maybe you guys have been cheaters in the past, but whenever I see cheating in a game, I have to ask myself, why? Why do people cheat in games? Well, first of all, just to clarify, I am not talking about single player games. If you just want to feel powerful or skip over a grind, I see no problem with that. As long as you are in an isolated environment, cheating isn't going to affect anyone else negatively. But be aware that when I say isolated, I do mean isolated, which doesn't just include multiplayer games. Any situation where you are faking your success in a game to other people, it doesn't just have to be people you're competing against, it could also be people watching you. So doing a speed run of a game and then submitting it online for everyone to praise you does not count as isolated, even if it's a single player game. Because while the game you're playing might be single player, the act of speedrunning in a community and comparing your scores with everyone else is still a form of competition. This game you're playing is single player, but this game you're playing is multiplayer. So you're still cheating, I hate you. But before we can talk about why people cheat, I have to ask, what is cheating? Your instinctual response may be playing unfairly, but then we have to go into what is fair play.
Hey, no laser pointer!
Is something like the Konami code cheating? Are using cheat codes that are already in the game cheating? Are glitches cheating? Is using something that is in the game but was not intended by the developer cheating? Or is it just an exploit? Different people will have different opinions, but the problem with talking about a single player game is that the person who decides what is and is not cheating is the person playing. When you're playing a game by yourself and your main priority is just having a good time, the highest authority you have to answer to is yourself and like the legal part of the game, don't pirate or whatever. But when you are the only person playing, there is nobody else who decides what is or isn't cheating, which means you get to decide. You're the only person. Things start getting a little more tricky when you're in a community. Now, when I say community, I am talking about things like the fighting game community, a large community that forms around whatever game you're playing that will give you a specific rule set. But something like you and your friends is also a community. This community can also decide their own rule set. And because what is considered cheating can change from person to person, it can also change from community to community, which is why you need a defined rule set if you're gonna try to play in a community. And while you might not like it, anything can be considered cheating given the right circumstance. If you're playing Mario Kart with a group of friends and they have established you are not allowed to look at the other person's screen and then use a lightning bolt when they're going over a jump. If you then wait for someone to go over a jump and then use a lightning bolt, that is cheating according to the community that you're currently a part of. But if you're with another group of friends and you do that and someone's like, oh my god dude, that was a nice play, now this group doesn't consider it cheating. So you have to know what the community considers cheating in order to play fairly in accordance with them. This is a necessity for a community to have an overlying rule set so that all these different people with different ideologies about how the game should be played can play together without having to argue every 5 seconds over whether they should be able to screen cheat or not. And if you can't play in accordance with the community, then you can't play with them. And not all of the time, but most of the time, communities that put a lot of thought into the rule sets they create have good reasons for the rules that they have. There's a reason why you can't just pick any stage if you're playing Smash competitively. This wasn't a random decision. It was a decision made in accordance with what they thought would be best for the community, which is hard because obviously you are never going to be in a situation where everyone in the community thinks the exact same thing. There's always going to be outliers. Now, with all that being said, I want to touch on two different forms of cheating because there is a big distinction between doing things that the community has deemed unfair and doing things that the game does not allow you to do. And it's a bit more difficult to do things that the game doesn't allow you to do now that we're in the digital age and we play on PCs and Switches and stuff. But something like putting an ace from your pocket into your hand is impossible unless you break the system of the game you're playing. And pretty much anything that isn't allowed by the game is gonna be considered cheating by the community. Because if the game says that you can't do it, then the community is definitely gonna say that you can't do it. Here's the thing though, in most situations, you're never going to be in just one community. I don't mean you're gonna have multiple friend groups that you're playing with. You could be playing a game that has a set community and a set rule set, but you could also be playing that same game with your friends. And now there's just another layer of the community. And what this community thinks is cheating could be different than what the agreed upon community's rule set is. Because again, there are always gonna be people with different opinions about what should be fair.
Right, you could play good.
Without looking too?
I'm not looking, I haven't looked. I don't care, I know it's a random hand and I got a random hand.
15 on top, Tony.
He's saying he hasn't looked though.
He most certainly looked. Did no one see him?
He's saying he didn't look.
Yeah, you wouldn't lie, Tony, would you?
I wouldn't lie, you can
There you
check
go.
my hand if you want.
Now, one of the first reasons why I think people cheat is because they have a different idea of what the rule set is than the community they're in.
He says he hasn't looked. He hasn't looked.
I didn't
Do
see
you believe him? Yeah. He said he hasn't looked. Only Joe looked.
Did you look at your cards at all? I mean, it's...
Look, the people at home, no, I haven't looked. Joe's looked
well,
at my
if
hand.
you haven't looked, it's kind of an easy decision for me here. Guess I'll just move in.
Phil ships and Tony calls.
All right, you're close. You're up there.
Oh, you lied.
Of course I lied. It's poker, Phil.
And this, I think, has the most justification because it relies on them not technically cheating.
Why would you lie? I mean, no, let's consider totally not uncool, man. I mean, it's not right.
I feel it's just a game.
That's etiquette, though. I mean, you don't
Phil,
say
what
you're
happens
blind
on this
when you're
table
blind.
in play is just a game. We tell whatever we want.
So
When do you
all
tell
the
the
rules
truth?
of poker are just thrown out the window
Well,
for you.
call the floorman. If you think my hand might be dead, then.
Sometimes this comes up because there is a gray area in the rule set. Obviously, people that make rule sets for games are human, and people are creative. They're always gonna find ways to skirt the fine line between cheating and just playing in a new and interesting way. But you're gonna have a hard time categorizing these people as cheaters because the only rules that will apply to them are those of the largest community. In this way, all the rules of things that they can't do kind of act like a safety net because they know that as long as they are not violating the rules of what the game allows you to do and the rules of what the community says you can't do, in a court of law, they could never be convicted as cheaters.
Ain't no rules that the dog can't play basketball.
If someone were to consider players like that dishonorable, no one could argue otherwise. But there's a big difference between playing dishonorably and playing unfairly. One of these is not liked, the other is not allowed.
That's horrible etiquette to say you didn't look at your hand, and you know, this really bad etiquette. But
What do you think? I'm a kid?
But what happens when you're not just playing dishonorably? What happens when you think cheating is the right thing to do? What happens when you think you deserve to win? When thinking about a cheater, it's easy to think about someone who is unable to find success due to a lack of skill. And so they rely on cheating to carry them to a level of skill they could never achieve. But what happens when someone could achieve this skill, but just cheats anyway? Top players of games who cheat are really fascinating to me. The logic that someone would have too is really easy to follow, especially if this person has already won in the past. A top chess player who uses an engine, or a top speedrunner splicing their runs. Someone in this position might think that the success that they will reach is inevitable. So it shouldn't matter if they're cheating because they're going to be in the same position either way. And what's interesting is they might actually be right. This person might be able to accomplish whatever they're trying to without cheating, especially in the case of, say, a speedrunner who's playing a very RNG dependent game. It is not unlikely that they could just get lucky and get the run that they wanted without cheating. But it doesn't matter that you think you can accomplish something hypothetically, or that something might be easy to you. You haven't accomplished it until you do accomplish it. Saying that something should happen because it is likely, even inevitable, is ignoring a core part of the game.
Boom! It's the fall!
It's Jamila time.
That is either RNG or putting a lot of time into something. These are real things that you have to do in order to find success. and there is no getting around them because you think the outcome is inevitable. The outcome could be inevitable, but you have to do the work to get the outcome in the first place. Anybody could be successful in anything if they could just skip all of the work and get to the outcome. That's not surprising. Just because you did 90% of the work already doesn't mean you can skip out on the other 10%. And the idea that any amount of work that you do means that you deserve success is so flawed. Just because you've grinded a run for a year doesn't mean you deserve to have the best time. You only deserve to have the best time if you get the best time. Yeah! And I get it, because the idea that work doesn't entitle you to success can be so frustrating, especially in situations where someone else can put in less work than you, but just get lucky. Or maybe someone else puts in less work than you, but they're just naturally talented in whatever they're doing, so they find success anyway. Unfortunately, trying harder than someone else does not mean that you're better than them, and you are never entitled to success or a good run or a first place finish at a tournament. You have to actually do the thing. Now, we've talked about a person who plays within the rule sets of the community, even if they know that what they're doing is kind of scummy. And we've talked about a person who does believe that what they're doing is correct, even if it is technically considered cheating. But what about someone who is not concerned with morals or skirting a fine line? They just want to win. Now, when I say a person might want to cheat because they want to win, you're gonna be like, well, duh. There's a saying that I used to hear a lot when I was younger. It's only cheating if you get caught. A bad message to the youth or whatever. But this is more true than you might think. I think it's really easy sometimes to think that we're in a magical fantasy world where everyone who plays unfairly or cheats gets caught and gets punished. But I guarantee that that is not the case. There are plenty of examples of known cheaters that only got caught years after the fact. And when you're a top player and you understand how your game works, it is so much more difficult to catch you cheating. And this is the last reason that I think that people cheat. It works. Cheating works.
Stop at $500 in a spin. $32,851.
Without any kind of moral stance on whether cheating is a good thing or a bad thing, it works, obviously. So many people have found success with cheating and then been caught. I could not imagine the number of people who have gotten away with cheating.
When we spoke to Kramnik, he estimated that 25% of titled players in Title Tuesday, I don't know if he specified Title Tuesday or just like all online chess, but he said that about a quarter of people were cheating. I would guess it's actually much higher than that. I think it's probably over half. People will probably think I'm paranoid.
You will only ever hear about someone who was not good enough at cheating or decided to fess up after the fact without being caught. But how often is that gonna happen? Now, I recognize how dangerous it is to say something like, oh, cheating is undeniably a good strategy. But it is a good strategy if you are not playing the same game. Many people play to have fun, and many people compete as a form of self-improvement. But there are people who play just to win.
You play to win the game.
And they are playing a completely different game than the rest of the community. When you're playing to win, but not to be good enough to win, that's dangerous. Because they're no longer trying just to beat their opponent or whoever they're playing against. They're trying to beat the entire community of people who are watching them play, who are scrutinizing their gameplay. They are still playing a game. It's just a different game. The game of cheating. Now, don't get it twisted. I am not validating someone who cheats. Because while cheating may be a good strategy for someone as the individual, it is extremely harmful for the community that you're in. Nobody is gonna respect a community where 9 out of the 10 top players are known cheaters. So if you care about the community of the game that you're playing, or you care about your own actual skill of the game that you're playing, or if you just want to be like a cool person who everyone likes, then don't cheat. Moral of the story, don't cheat, do your taxes, brush your teeth, beat your children, subscribe to the channel. Okay, bye.